in my own concept of things, I see that as our state and nation, as time goes by, we should be more open. That our society will really rise to a higher level if everything is open. The more open, the better. Can you assure us that as long as you're governor, you will be careful about your policies and signing legislation that would tend to close in one way or another the people's right to know what the government is doing?
That's a great question, and I'll speak specifically. The general principle, I couldn't agree more, and some of your, I got a chance to talk with 2 or 3 of you who I ran into in the Capitol today. I'd say that that's true with a qualifier in that it has to be reasonable. And let me give you 2 examples of that. One of the things we're working on right now is an open records policy for the administration. What we found when we came in is that every department handled it differently. So some charged this, some didn't do that, etc. You also would be surprised to know that our open records requests, if you look at it historically, are going up dramatically. And you might say, well, that's good, right? Well, it is good, except for this. I'll give you an example. When I was running for mayor, some of my opponents were smart enough to think, well, it's all open records, everything that's happened in the city of Knoxville. We'll find every contentious issue and we'll say, we'd like to see all of your records on that. Fair, right? I'm in a public job. But the question is, so we did basically had to, for almost a full-time basis there during the campaign for a while, we had a lawyer, 2 assistants, and another administrator basically working on finding everything that was requested. So my question would be, should the city of Knoxville taxpayers pay for that? I don't think so. I mean, I think there should be a fair and reasonable way to charge that. Now, reasonable is what we're working toward, and we're working toward an open records policy, and Frank and some others are going to be a part of that process as we're trying to find that. But there is a way to, what we have to do is find a way that says, we think that information should be available to you. We need to have a reasonable method for how we charge for what it takes to find that, and for other things that we think might need to be restricted for a while. I'll give you another example of that. We have a bill in to be able to withhold some financial information from companies that we're recruiting for business in Tennessee. And some people say, well, why would you want that? I'll give you an example. I've seen this when I was mayor in Knoxville. I've seen it here. We spend a lot of time sometimes out pursuing a company to come to Tennessee. And we're putting together an incentive program for them, and they're telling us how many jobs they'll bring, et cetera. And then when we dig a little further, that company may or may not have the wherewithal to do what they're saying they're going to do. And I can think of at least one case, both when I was mayor and when I was governor, where we spent quite a bit of time and quite a bit of government resources till we finally said, you know, these folks can't do what they're saying they're going to do. So we did that by eventually, over a period of time, pulling their financial information out of them to see if they were capable of doing what they said. To do that, if we're going to have companies come look at us, if they think, well, we'll give you our financial information, but I don't really want it to be on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow while we're trying to figure all this out. There's certain things like that that we feel like for the good of that negotiation, we need to keep to ourselves. So do I believe open is better? Yes. Do I think that everything should be open? I gave you 2 examples where I think there's some issues.
I like to start, but I give you an A on the first one. I mean, an A on the second one, and a C- on this.
All right.
Because I assert we're already paying for it. We're paying, it is the taxes that people pay in Tennessee that are already supporting your office.
Right. Okay. Fair.
And we're entitled to know what those things are.
That's fair. So you're talking about the first one being when my
records, yeah.
My campaign opponents won. Okay, well, that's fine. Remember, these are folks who are running against me for office who would just go say, hey, we want the city of Knoxville to spend $19,000 to employ people who are going to go dig up records for a political campaign. I don't think that's what people pay taxes for. And I'll say this too, and I'll be a little pushy back. Not that you're rushing. You have a right to make open, I get that, but I'll also say this. A lot of times I see open records requests that I think 10 years ago, the reporter was doing a lot more legwork on his own before he ever asked open records requests. I'll just say that.
Well,
She asked first, so she gets to keep asking.
back then, it was paper. Now it's electronic to a great extent, so we have to have help. We can't walk into an office and...
Fair. That's a very good
okay.
distinction. But there's also something, well, I will. But there's also something to having a reporter who really goes, does the homework, works sources, asks questions, and then comes and says, here's where I'm going and here's what I need. Instead of just starting with this blanket request that says, you know, give me all your aces.
Okay, you went up to a D9.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't the bill on withholding financial information, doesn't it include ownership information about the companies you're recruiting?
It's not only financial information, but ownership information. So I've had that discussion, I guess, with a couple of editorial boards in terms of, well, how do we know that, you know, how do we know whether you or your brother or your cousin or somebody? I think that's where anything where there's a government official that's connected to it, I think that should be disclosed. But you do have a lot of companies that are owned by folks that they're not, I mean, they're private citizens and they're making investments and they're trying to decide, am I going to invest in community A or community B? And it's a disadvantage for us if we said, oh, by the way, we're going to publish your exact ownership structure as part of this.